In today's video, I'm going to be giving you guys the best team to rebuild in each of the 50 states. A couple states don't have an FBS team at all, but the majority of states at least have two different FBS teams that I will tell you which one to rebuild. With that being said, let's get straight into it as I go into this video. I'm going to go in alphabetical order, so we're starting with Alabama, and I have Jacksonville State. They just got to the FBS last year. Last year there was their first season, and they went 9-4 in Conference USA. So this is a good team. It has high momentum. They just got to the FBS, but as you know, there are 50 states, so I'm not going to spend too much time on each team. Next is Alaska, which unfortunately does not have a team. Then we have Arizona, which I chose Arizona State. They have been kind of bad recently. It's a big school with a lot of opportunities on the West Coast and recruiting over there, so I would definitely go with Arizona State. Arkansas is just Arkansas. They're the definition of a rebuild. They were once good, but now they're bad. They're in the SEC, so you have the chances that you need. In California, I have Cal, a mid-tier team that you can take a hold of and win, especially out there. Like I mentioned, on the West Coast, there's a lot of opportunities, so Cal would be a great team to rebuild. Also, they have decent uniforms. In Colorado, I have Colorado State because Colorado and Air Force are the only two other schools, and they are already good and not in need of a rebuild. So Colorado State hasn't been very good, and a rebuild would definitely help them out. Connecticut, UConn is the only team there, so you're going to have to rebuild UConn, but that is still a fun rebuild. I mean, I would rebuild UConn anyway, so that would be a good rebuild as they are not a good team. Delaware unfortunately does not have a team. Florida is Florida. Recruiting is good down there. You have a good program already. Once again, it's like Arkansas. It is a rebuild. You're in the SEC, so you have these chances. You know, Florida, though, they just have kind of struggled a little bit. They've had a couple good spots here and there, but you need to get this team to the top if you're taking over at Florida. Georgia is Georgia Tech. They are in the ACC, so you have a chance. They're kind of a borderline bad team. They're not bad, but they're getting there, so Georgia Tech would be a fun rebuild. Hawaii, obviously the only school in Hawaii is Hawaii, so that would be a fun team to rebuild anyway. I mentioned it in a previous video, so I don't know. Hawaii is fun to rebuild. Idaho is Boise State. Once again, it's the only school in Idaho, but if you like blue fields, go there and you can rebuild Boise State. In Illinois, Northwestern, they're a horrible Big Ten team. They're getting a new stadium. They could be on the rise if you want to take hold of them, especially though, I really like this rebuild. There's a lot of Big Ten teams on this list because I just think the Big Ten is so fun to rebuild in because you have chances, but it's not overwhelmingly difficult. Continuing with Big Ten schools in Indiana, I have Indiana University, and it might even be my first rebuild anyway in College Football 25. I love the idea of an Indiana rebuild. They have this whole state they can mess with, you know, and they're in the Big Ten. They play big schools year in and year out. They just need to take a step, and you can do that if you go to Indiana University. Once again, Iowa, I mean, I've said it before, the challenge here is to rebuild their offense, their defense. We saw in the trailers like 93 overall, their offense is like 73 overall. So the challenge here is to, you know, restore Iowa's offense instead of just punt University. Kansas University, I guess, they're too inconsistent in the past. They go on streaks, you know, they're all right, but this would be a very fun rebuild as you're in the Big 12. There's a lot going on down there, so Kansas would definitely be a fun rebuild. Kentucky, Western Kentucky, this is a very fun offense. I've done a rebuild with them in the past, so if you want, I kind of just fling it around offense. Western Kentucky is where it's at, so if you're going to play something like offensive coordinator where you're physically playing each game, I would go with Western Kentucky. In Louisiana, I have Tulane. I've talked about them before. They have amazing jersey combinations, but along with that, they're also a team on the rise. They're not in a huge division yet, but you can get them promoted. There's a chance you can go undefeated, maybe get in the college football playoffs, so Tulane would be a great school in Louisiana to rebuild. Maine does not have a team. Maryland is Navy. I had to throw in a military school somewhere, and they are probably the worst military school in FBS, so this would be a tough rebuild challenge, but Navy would still be fun to do. Massachusetts, they've never been good. Hard rebuild. Recruiting sucks. I believe they're the only school in Massachusetts. I forget though. Michigan, Eastern Michigan, but any directional works. East has the best uniforms personally, but really, I don't know a whole lot about it, but I believe that the 3 directional are pretty, balanced and stuff. So if you just want to choose what jerseys you like, you should go with that. In Minnesota, I have Minnesota University. They're still a good team to rebuild, but once again, they're the only team in Minnesota. But it's another one of those Big Ten. They've had some success. A lot of these Big Ten teams are going up and down randomly in the season. So we just need one to stick out above the rest, and whichever one you want to rebuild, that should be your goal for them. Mississippi, I have Southern Miss. There's not a whole lot going on, but there are lots of recruits. You're in the deep south, so you can go a lot. You can get places from Georgia, Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, all those if you want to rise up. Missouri, University of Missouri, they are the only team in Missouri, so that's what I have for that. Montana, once again, no team in Montana. Nebraska University, you have very loyal fans. They've sold out every game for like some crazy amount of years, but you're similar to Minnesota, a dynasty team. They haven't been good recently, but you can take control of them. Nevada, UNLV, there's not much to say about them. They're better than Nevada. They have better uniforms. So I don't know a whole lot about them, but that's what I chose for them. New Hampshire, no team in New Hampshire. New Jersey is Rutgers. They're the only team in New Jersey, but once again, a broken record. Big Ten team, take control of them. New Mexico, I have New Mexico State. They're solid starting ground, but they're still in Conference USA, so you can probably get promoted with them. Once again, the challenge here is to go undefeated and then get moved up. New York is Syracuse. They're a fun ACC school. The orange is nice. You play in a dome, so you have that going for you if like that. North Carolina is Duke, and Duke is one of the ones that I want to rebuild anyway. Like Indiana, they have really nice jerseys. There's a lot going on at that school. They're a great basketball program. Then they're one step away from being good. You're in the ACC, so you can dominate there. North Dakota, no school in North Dakota. Ohio is Kent State, arguably the worst team in 2023. I think they were ranked last or close to last, so this is a big challenge. Oklahoma State, their chance to dominate the Big 12 is finally here with, Oklahoma and Texas leaving. They can take hold of it. Them or Kansas need to take control and, start a dynasty in the Big 12. Oregon is Oregon State just because Oregon is not a rebuild, so it has to be the other team in Oregon, Oregon State. I said Oregon a lot. Pennsylvania is Pitt. They've had shaky seasons recently, but they are in a decent recruiting area. They have nice jerseys, I guess, but you have a lot of good starting ground in Pitt. They just have been shaky a little bit. Rhode Island, no team in Rhode Island. South Carolina. Fun SEC rebuild. They have a chance to prove themselves. So they've kind of had some flashes of good, but nothing too crazy. South Dakota, there is no team in South Dakota. Tennessee is Vanderbilt, the worst team in the SEC. The only way to go is up. You already made it to the SEC, but they just have had no success recently. So you can go in there and get them some success. Texas is TCU. They have the most teams in FBS out of any state, I think. So this might be a surprise, but they fell off a couple years after making it to the national championship, and they have nice purple uniforms, so you should take them back. I mean, there are some, there's Sam Houston State. Some people might say that for Texas, but I like the rebuild aspect, and TCU is a good start. In Utah, BYU, they moved to the Big 12. They're kind of a wild card. I don't know really what goes on at BYU, so I don't know. This could be a fun rebuild. They have decent uniforms. Vermont has no team. Virginia is Liberty. Obviously, they had a really good season last year. Maybe you can get them promoted because they went like 12-0 or something. Lost their bowl game to Oregon, but it's Oregon, so you can't really blame them. But you just have to build up from there. Washington is Washington State. They're not a great team, but Washington, like Oregon, isn't much of a rebuild, so you have to go Washington State for this one. West Virginia is Marshall. They're another Sun Belt team. They've had decent success, kind of, but it's your chance to take them to the top in the Sun Belt and get promoted, just like a lot of the other small teams. Wisconsin University, only team in the state. Once again, Big Ten team, only one team in the state. And Wyoming University is the only team in Wyoming. With that being said, thank you so much. There's my list of the 50 states and the best school to rebuild in each one of them. So thank you so much for watching if you made it this far, and I will see you in the next one.